Hi everyone, welcome to this brand new explainer here on the Discovery Room channel. I am absolutely pumped to guide you through today's material because, well, we are looking at a milestone that has literally never been reached in modern human history. Based on a massive tidal wave of recent financial filings, market reports, and some really clever corporate restructuring, Elon Musk is officially on track to become the world's first trillionaire by 2027. So we're going to look closely at the math, the corporate maneuvers, and the history behind this mind-boggling 13-digit fortune.
Okay, let's dive right into this. Before we even touch the corporate balance sheets, we have to properly frame the sheer scale we're talking about here. Human brains really struggle to comprehend the difference between a billion and a trillion, so let's use time to visualize it. 1 million seconds is about 11.5 days. 1 billion seconds, that's 31.7 years. But a trillion seconds, that stretches to a mind-bending 31,700 years. So to go from a billionaire to a trillionaire, it's just an unfathomable leap.
And that brings us to part one, the scale of a trillion.
Which leads us perfectly right into part two, the wealth engines.
So how exactly do you generate wealth that grows at an astonishing average annual rate of 110%? Well, let's start with Tesla. Following a massive purchase in September 2025, his direct common stock sits at 15.2%. But the real story is those restored options. In December 2025, the Delaware Supreme Court restored his massive 2018 pay package options, which had actually previously been voided. When you add those fully vested options back into the mix, Musk's potential stake in Tesla jumps to an incredible 22.1% of an expanded share base. That legal victory alone restored over $130 billion in stock option value right back to his personal holdings. And this brilliantly illustrates the strategic maneuvering happening on the private side of his empire, specifically with SpaceX and his artificial intelligence company, xAI. In February 2026, SpaceX acquired xAI, but they didn't just smash the two companies together. They used a really clever move called a reverse triangular merger. Basically, SpaceX created a transient shell subsidiary, which then merged directly into xAI. Why do it that way? To legally isolate xAI's billions in debt, including legacy debt from the Twitter acquisition, keeping SpaceX's balance sheet perfectly clean. It's honestly a masterclass in corporate structuring.
The crucial point here is the result of that merger. This freshly combined technology behemoth, bringing together rockets, satellite internet, and gigawatt-scale AI computing, is now valued at a staggering $1.25 trillion. And the crazy part? Musk managed to preserve his equity through all of this, holding on to a massive 42% piece of the pie while maintaining over 82% of the voting control.
All right, moving on to part three, the catalyst. So what is the specific event projected to trigger this milestone? It's the upcoming SpaceX initial public offering. The hard math behind this is staggering. Targeted for June 12, 2026, SpaceX is planning to offer over 555 million shares at $135 each. That aims to raise $75 billion, which completely shatters the previous global record set by oil giant Saudi Aramco's $26 billion debut. But more importantly, this specific share price locks in a post-IPO valuation for SpaceX of $1.77 trillion. When you take that new $1.77 trillion company valuation and apply it to Musk's 42% ownership stake, the math is undeniable. His pre-IPO net worth of roughly $826.1 billion gets an instant injection. The value added directly by this IPO translates to a more than $200 billion personal gain for Musk, occurring almost overnight when that bell rings on the stock exchange.
I just want to pause for a second and let this colossal number really sink in. $1.027 trillion. If this IPO executes exactly as projected, this is the 13-digit fortune that instantly crowns the world's first trillionaire, well ahead of those original 2027 estimates.
Let's transition over to part four, sovereign parity in history. Now we're seeing this concept of sovereign parity actually play out in real life. We're talking about a private citizen whose personal balance sheet literally eclipses the entire annual economic output of advanced, highly developed industrial nations. A projected $1.027 trillion is significantly larger than the nominal gross domestic product of Taiwan at $802 billion, and it's almost double the GDP of Ireland.
And if we look backward on the historical timeline, we can see how Musk's trajectory compares to the ultimate titans of the past. In 1324, we have the king of Mali, Mansa Musa, with an estimated wealth of around $400 billion in today's money.
Then in 1913, America's great oil baron John D. Rockefeller hit a peak inflation-adjusted fortune of roughly $631 billion, and now we're looking at the 2027 projection, or sooner depending on the IPO, of over $1 trillion for Musk.
I want to highlight Mansa Musa for a second, because this is just a wild historical anecdote. He controlled half of the old world's entire gold supply. During his pilgrimage to Mecca, his caravan carried so much gold and he spent it so lavishly in places like Cairo that he actually caused severe regional inflation. Historians estimate he caused over $1 billion in economic losses in the Middle East just by traveling through. His wealth was quite literally the wealth of an empire.
When you compare Musk directly to Rockefeller, an interesting distinction pops up. Rockefeller controlled a staggering peak share of the domestic U.S. economy back in 1913. However, Musk's impending trillionaire status establishes an entirely new global benchmark. He's not just taking a slice of a domestic pie. His integrated technology portfolio is approaching parity with modern global sovereign outputs.
Which brings us to our final section, Part 5, the future of extreme wealth.
Analysts are actually starting to call this phenomenon the Muskonomy. It's a fundamental move away from siloed companies into a highly integrated ecosystem. Rockets, artificial intelligence, social media platforms, and electric vehicles are no longer separate ventures. They are interconnected parts of a massive, comprehensive technology platform where hardware and software intelligence converge to pool resources and mitigate risk.
So to tie this all together for you focused learners out there, this trillion-dollar milestone isn't driven by just selling one product. It's built on 4 vertically integrated pillars. You've got Tesla leading in automotive and robotics, SpaceX absolutely dominating aerospace, xAI pushing the boundaries of orbital artificial intelligence, and Starlink and X providing global infrastructure and communications. They are all relentlessly feeding into one another.
As we wrap up this explainer, I want to leave you with a completely neutral yet profoundly important question to ponder. As we watch this unprecedented financial milestone approach, what does it truly mean for the future of the global economy and our geopolitical landscape when a single private citizen wields the financial and technological power of an entire nation-state? It's a reality we will all be navigating very soon. Thanks so much for joining me to explore the data behind the headlines and keep learning.